Here we go, everyone. It is Jenny Fennick here. Welcome to another episode of Coach Magic. I have to be real with you. I was planning to take a bit of a hiatus this summer and not have any guests on this summer. But I knew that we had to have someone on before our summer hiatus, and that person is with us today. We've got Jen Newberg, who I have known for a really long time, and I'm just so thrilled to have her with us today. Let me tell you about Jen, and then we're going to get deep into this conversation, and you'll learn quickly why I needed to have her on today, why I wanted to have her on today to talk about pain into purpose. That's the theme. Jen is a communications and partnerships executive, both in the for-profit and nonprofit space, with experience leading mission-driven campaigns for brands like T-Mobile, Purina, Dove, Planet Fitness, and more. Her superpower is connecting people. She specializes in building authentic, value-based connections, drawing from her own journey through life transitions. Jen founded It's Lifey to connect people going through major life shifts. Jen believes there's no playbook for life, but with community and shared experience, we can find our way through. Jen, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes. And we go way back, well, all the way to UF, although we didn't really cross paths there, I don't believe, but it was really New York City, our early 20s when we were doing the damn thing.
Yeah, we were. Those were the days, right?
Yep, those were the days when you got all the energy. You're this, hot little gal going into these clubs, going past the red velvet rope by way of our friend James.
Yes, no kids, no responsibility. Well, we kind of had some responsibility.
A little bit, exactly. Like somehow we showed up for work and
right,
did
exactly.
a good job, right? We were both in public relations and communications, which was a fun place to be in our 20s in New York City. And then our lives have taken lots of twists and turns. And then we both ended up kind of randomly, I think, in Massachusetts, which is also quite funny, although we're kind of on two different sides of the state. But we came back together because you had been kind of watching my journey and doing what I was doing. And then you had reached out after a massive loss in your life and a big change. So why don't you just kind of tell us, I know your story, but what your story has been for this last year and how that has led to what you're doing now.
Absolutely. So as Jenny said, we've known each other for a really long time, and life, as it does, has taken twists and turns. In fact, it's the reason behind the name of my company. It's Lifey because life gets lifey. And I don't think anybody's path is linear. We all have bumps in the road. We all have transitions in our life, and unfortunately, as Jenny mentioned, I went through a pretty big one about a year ago. I was on vacation with my husband. We were in Greece. We were supposed to be there for 14 days. And on day 4 of our vacation, we were on the island of Mykonos, which is beautiful. He woke me up in the middle of the night around 4 a.m. and he said, "I think I'm having a heart attack." And I ran downstairs, as one would do, to the hotel lobby. And I said, "We need to call 911. And the hotel manager was at the reception desk, thank God. And he said, "We don't have 911. You're on an island in Greece during off season. There's no 911. I said, "Well, my husband's having a heart attack." And so we ran back to our room and we administered CPR and did what we thought we needed to do. And within about 20 minutes, he was gone. And so that led to a lot of things. It led to complete chaos. Eventually, medics did make it to the room. It was well past the time that they could do anything. And I think, everybody knew that. But they did what they needed to do. My first stop was the police station because a man had just died in my hotel room. And so understandably, they needed to make sure that there was no foul play. But imagine your husband dies and you're all of a sudden in a Greek police station where no one speaks English. And so, that really began this journey of widowhood, as we call it here, and across the country. And just really dealing with the U.S. Embassy, having to deal with a funeral home in Greece who took care of all of the arrangements, the autopsy. My husband was cremated there. And dealing with this whole, what was happening on the other side of the world, and then coming back home. I can honestly say that flight back home was probably the worst 10 hours of my entire life. I did have family offer to come with me, but I was like, you don't need to fly to Greece just to fly home. In hindsight, it probably would have let them. But, I flew home, walking into a house of chaos, and we had 3 kids. 2 of them were his. One of them was mine. So we had a blended family, having both been married before. And, just the chaos that comes with planning a funeral, and the generosity of people around you who want to help but don't know how, and just being in this place of shock. I think that's really the best way to describe those first couple of weeks is just pure and utter shock. I decided, because in my mind, I'm a very busy person. I like a lot of activity. And I said, I'm going to go back to work. And I was working for Boys and Girls Club of America at the time. I had a wonderful job, a wonderful team. And I thought that would be a really good idea to keep me busy. And so I went back to work, and that lasted all of 3 weeks before I walked into the emergency room of my local hospital and fell to the ground and said, I need help. And so that was a really big turning point. One thing that I have learned, part of my journey, is also that I am sober and in recovery. And one of the things that I have learned, and which is pounded over your head in recovery, is learning how to ask for help. And I am so grateful that I had that tool, because I knew I needed help. And so that really began this new journey that's been the last year of my life. We just passed the year anniversary of his death, which was May 21st. And in that time, a lot has happened. And so, that's, that was the beginning. As Jenny mentioned, she taught me this phrase of turning pain into purpose. It's really, I believe this is what I am intended to do. And I say a lot, I hate how I got here, but I'm here. Of course, grief is really intense and powerful, and I miss my husband more than anything in the world. But I also feel like he's given me a gift, and that gift is it's Lifey, this company that I'm building. And so that's the story of trauma. And it'll always be a part of my life. I will never, ever not be able to get the vision out of my head of that night. And that's something that will live with me forever. It's also something that I've learned through a lot of therapy. Thank God. In fact, I'm coming here right now just from a therapy session. So talk about being real. Like,
Jen, I had my therapy before our session today, right now. So I'm with you. I was like, yes.
We are fresh off the therapy boat.
Fresh off. And that's actually the best time to come to this, because I feel open. I just let things go. And I get some clarity. And thank God for therapy. And what a story. And I obviously know this has happened to you, but I learned some new pieces. I didn't realize it was on Mykonos, which is, I knew it was in Greece, and I adore Mykonos. And now, I adore Mykonos because I've had really positive experiences there. But to have that happen there, to have a medical emergency on an island where there is no 911, we don't have that. Okay, so then what do you do? And you did the best that you could with what you had, and it was just horrible, horrible. There was something too that you mentioned. I just thought, 4 is an important number for you. I don't know if you picked up on that, but that was a 14-day trip. You were on day 4 and it was 4 a.m. Did you see that? 444.
Wow.
So something to keep in mind, like there's the number 4 is significant for you. And maybe when you see that number, when you see repeating patterns of that, maybe that's Jack giving you that message. All right. So little something there, little something. Actually, with my therapist earlier today, since we're keeping it real, Jen, I told I am incredible at spotting patterns. That is the thing that I do. And I've been able to do that since I was a young child. And it can be a tricky place because I can see things that other people can't see. And I often see it really fast. And so I just had to share that with you. I was like, 4.
You did it. That was fast.
I was like, 4. Oh my gosh, jumping off the page at me. Okay. Wow. So, and that image too of you going to the hospital after 3 weeks back at work, just realizing, my old habits of like, I'm just going to stay busy. I'm going to go to my job. Everything's going to be fine. No. And then you collapse. Did you go there because did you feel like your body was breaking down? Was there something was it a panic attack? Like what made you say, I have to go to the hospital and I tell them I need help?
I now know it was a pretty massive panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, mind you, it was about a month after watching someone have a heart attack.
Yeah.
That definitely crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I had a different therapist. It was an interim therapist at the time. And I called her first.
Okay.
And she said, I think you need to go to the hospital.
Okay.
Again, signs, the presence of a higher power, whatever it may be, at the hospital, which is Newton Wellesley Hospital, which is, my hometown hospital, is where I began my path of recovery.
Wow.
There is a little office in the hospital. It's called the Substance Use Services Clinic. And that was where I first went when I decided to get sober. And so that's actually, instead of going to the emergency room, that was a little bit of I actually went into their office.
Okay.
And the social worker who works in that office, put her arm around me and brought me down to the emergency room, where, they ask the typical questions. Are you going to hurt yourself? Are someone going to hurt you? All of those things. And I said, no, I just don't know. I don't know what to do with myself right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was that realization. It was that moment, that heightened moment that made me realize, like, holy moly, like this is a really big deal. Like this is a massive trauma. And I now, through the work that I do, talk to a lot of women and men who are widows and who have experienced similar traumas. And I understand and, I don't appreciate, it's probably not the right word, but I can now, really see how traumatic, I didn't know. I really didn't know. I didn't know that moment could impact. And, I'm sure you talk a lot about this, Jenny. I know I talk a lot about this in my world too, how, the symbiotic relationship between mental, physical, and emotional. And I didn't know, like, you're right. I did. I felt my body, it sounds super dramatic, but when I walked into the Substance Use Services Clinic, I dropped to the floor. And I don't share that a lot because it does sound a little bit dramatic, but that's actually what happened.
That's the truth.
And so, again, I now know that it was just a pretty severe panic attack and not a heart attack. Thank God.
Yeah.
And, I was, very well taken care of.
Good.
And that was definitely a moment of, it's time to slow down.
Yeah. You can't go back to your old life. The old life doesn't exist anymore. And that's the learning. And I too have gone through panic attacks. And when you're having it, you literally feel like you're dying. You're like, this is because the alarm bells are going off in the body. And it's so good that you went and got help. I had a similar situation, obviously many, many years ago. My sister died when I was 16, and I'm saying, I'll never get the visual of the hospital room scene. She died in a hospital. Okay. So we did have that. We had the medical professionals and all of that, but still death is death. And it's profound and it's a loss that you never really get over. You move forward eventually. But I did like you did, which like I was in school. So I went to school the next day. Like I'm going to school, like not dropping out of school. Like I'm going to school, and I kind of defaulted to my old habits, which was just do this thing. And years later, it caught up with me. And it was that I had a panic attack at work. It was at work in New York when you and I knew each other. PR, which was always stressful, and it was always a crisis, and there was always everything needed to be due like immediately. And I just couldn't keep up that pace anymore, while all of a sudden that trauma and the pain from my past was trying to be healed, like needed my attention. And so I remember that feeling very, very deeply. And the way you got help, I got help in my own way too. And I think just us having this conversation today is really powerful for you and I. And I'm hoping for our listeners who have experienced their own version of trauma, or they know someone who has. And y'all, please share this conversation, because sometimes we forget that we can get help. We are allowed to get help. We hold up so much, but we can't hold up the whole world when we're falling apart. Like when literally Jen's going in and collapsing on the floor, and I'm having my panic attack at work. Like we can stop being so damn responsible and just get our own needs handled. Like we're responsible. Like we've always been good. We're good at the things. But gosh, when you are dealt a hand like this, you need help. You need help. So you got help. And that line that you said, I hate how I got here, but I'm here. And so acknowledging I am here, and what am I going to do now? And so this gift that your husband gave you, and absolutely so proud, you birthed its life. You said, I'm going to create community. I want to have these conversations with other people who have gone through really hard stuff. So let's talk about your company and how you came up with this idea and how you've been navigating the build, because that's what it is. We got to get something off the ground and through something tangible. You have the idea, and then, okay, well, then what are you offering? So walk us through that.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to you for many reasons, but just, right now in this very moment, and you mentioned this, sharing this with other people. And I tell my story a lot, and some people think I'm crazy, but I do it because I never want anyone to feel alone. And I know, again, from my journey in recovery, so many times where I would hear somebody tell their story and I would think to myself, oh my gosh, me too. And so I just wanted to reiterate what Jenny said, that I don't tell my story for people to feel sorry for me. I tell it so that people don't feel alone. Yes. And that is a huge part. It leads perfectly well into why I have built It's Lifey. So quick beginning story is that 6 months after Jack died, the whole world was spinning. There was court stuff to deal with. There was kid stuff to deal with. There was it was like just insanity. And I said, I need to get out of here. And so I eeny, meeny, miny, mode, picked a wellness retreat in Costa Rica. I am not a wellness person in a sense that I don't do yoga, energy healing, Reiki. All of that is not really a part of my life. That being said, I very much respect it, and I recommend it to people who are open to it. In fact, today I actually have an appointment later on today with an acupressurist who does some sort of some sort of thing with your ears too. That's, I don't really know. But I'm definitely more open to it. But anyway, so I go on this retreat to Costa Rica, and the funny story goes is that most of the women there were a lot younger than what I was. And this young girl in her 20s comes running up to me, and she goes, oh, how often do you practice? And I look at her and I was like, practice what? And she's like, you're on a yoga retreat, right? And I was like, oh, practice yoga. I don't. And she looked at me like I had 17 heads. And I said, my life's just insane and I needed to get out.
I just booked the ticket. I didn't really need to find
She was like, okay. And so the reason I share that story is because that retreat very much fulfilled the need to get away, to unplug my phone, to unplug myself, and to regain the strength that I needed to come back to the chaos and be able to manage it. And so on the plane ride home, I was thinking to myself, gosh, that was a really good experience from that perspective. But I had wished that I had connected with the people on the retreat a little bit more than I had. Their definition of chaos was very different than mine. We were just in different stages of our lives. I mean, that's really just the reality of it. And so I thought, well, what if I could create a retreat that had that same healing benefits, that same benefit of unplugging from chaos, but with people who were in the same position. And so me being me, within like 3 weeks, I had a house book to host the retreat, which ironically, not ironically, I don't know, happens to be down the street from where Jenny lives.
Yeah.
Like so bananas.
Yeah.
And so I had booked this house and jumped right in and, started finding, I knew it was going to be for widows. I knew I had to bring in really awesome session leaders. I knew that I wanted it to be fun. I knew that I wanted it to be relaxing, like all the things. And I got to take all the things that like I really wanted or I really needed and pull it all together for other people. And so that was the beginning of my retreat world. It was also the point where I called Jenny and said, I've been watching your career. I know you do a lot of these. I know you do a lot of coaching around building a business, and I need some help. I had never. I worked in corporate America, as you mentioned. I worked in the nonprofit space. Entrepreneur was not on my list of qualifications. And so, as the retreat started to come together, I said, what is the umbrella that this falls under? I don't really want to host retreats on their own for the rest of my life. I would like to have them be a part of something bigger. But I worked in PR, as we talked about. I've planned millions of events. Events are hard.
They sure are.
I know very well that planning events is not something that I want to do over and over and over again for the rest of my life. So I thought, what is the bigger purpose of this? And I went on to LegalZoom and I filed an LLC and I said, okay, now I have a company. Look at that. And what I did is what I knew how to do, is ideate and brainstorm and talk to people, connect with people. And I have a PowerPoint that I will probably forever have that has about 19 different ideas of what It's Lifey could be. I spoke to 47 people across every industry, every level, every type of person you can imagine over a 2-month period. And I just like spilled it. Like, what if I did this? And what if I did this? And what if I did this? And I was like, when we first met and I first started, Energy Queen with you, I was like that. I was like, what, I'm going to do all of these things. And the retreat was happening no matter what. That was booked. And I had this really wonderful woman. Her name is Anne LaFleur. She lives here in my hometown and one of the 47 people that I spoke to. And I gave her my PowerPoint and we met the next day or a couple of days later. And she said, I think you need to focus. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I do.
And so since that moment, which was actually just a couple months ago, I have really honed in on the retreat, making it the best it can be. It's happening in, like 14 days.
Yeah, 14. There's the 14 again.
There you go. Oh my God. 14 days. And she also was the program director at a community center here in Natick and said, I run these 6-week programs, all different kinds of programs. They run from, music to fitness to what have you. And she said, do you want to run a support group? And I said, yes. And so that's really what has become the core, at least for now, of It's Lifey. I have now run my first support group. It was, I don't even know how to describe the gratitude that I have and the gosh, I'm not usually at a loss for words. I mean, I'm
Mm.
pretty much never. But it's really, gratitude is really the word that I have, to have the opportunity to have met the 7 women that came to my support group. We all went to dinner last Saturday night. We have group text going on. I actually tell people I measure it's success. The first meeting we had afterwards, I was cleaning up the room and they all went into the hallway and they're all chit-chatting and exchanging numbers. And I was like, yes, like that is exactly what I wanted. And none of those women, I can tell you for a fact, none of them wanted to be there.
Right. Because they're all widows. They're all widows. Like
their sons, their friends, their brothers, they were all, maybe not all of them, but at least more than half of them had been dragged there by another person. Because that person knew they needed support. But in their minds, I mean, the thought of being in a room with other women and talking about your trauma, like that's daunting. And it's one of the things that I really pride myself and my business on is I'm very honest. I am not a therapist. I'm not a coach. I have no formal training. As you know, Jenny mentioned in my intro, I'm a connector. Right. And I think that makes it a little less scary for people. They don't feel like they're going to group therapy. They don't feel like they're going to be a part of a formalized coaching session. It is literally just us being together with people who get it. Yeah. And so that was awesome. Needless to say, I am hosting 4 more in the fall, expanding to other parts of Massachusetts. Okay. As mentioned, in 14 days, I do have my first retreat. I have 10 amazing women coming from all over the country, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, New Jersey. It's crazy. I'm really excited about that. I'm also planning my second retreat, which will happen in October. That actually will be more wellness focused, working with some great practitioners, energy healers, mediums, Reiki masters. And so that is happening, figuring out, working through the details of that right now, but it's going to be the weekend of October 17th. I do have a date. That's all I have, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's where we start.
Listen, I have a date and I have people that want to come.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Even though they say it's not about, it's like where you are, it's who you're with. That song. Right? Yeah. So that's it. It's just, that's community. And that's what you set out to do, was build community. And I love how you've owned the fact that, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a coach and I don't need to be. And what has really made these rooms so special and feel so safe, and is that we all are in the same boat. And so I am connecting. I'm helping you all connect, and you're trading numbers because you actually want to talk with each other, and and that's all you need. That's all you need. That's all you need.
I feel that the power of connection is one of the most critical things in life. And listen, I know we hate to talk about it, but we all lived through a pandemic where connection was limited. Yeah. And as I just said, whether we like to talk about it or not, it had an impact on all of our lives.
Yeah.
And we are very lucky that we are not living in that anymore. And so I feel like we need to embrace it.
Yes.
And we've learned to embrace it even more, that, we need to be with other people. In fact, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the former Surgeon General, is one of my heroes. He one of his platforms when he was in office was around loneliness.
Yes.
And he talks about the loneliness epidemic, and he has a quote that says, loneliness could have the same impact on your body as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Jeez. Yeah.
And, I repeat that a lot because it puts into perspective how important connection is.
Yes, absolutely. And not just connect. I mean, this is what we're doing. We're connecting right now. This is going out. People are going to tune in on their phone or on wherever they listen. And what you're doing, and a lot of what I do as well, is taking that connection offline into real rooms.
Yep.
And that's what we were missing. And during COVID, I remember that feeling of, oh my, well, you were afraid to be around people. It's like, oh my God, especially when it was so new.
We had to. We didn't have a choice.
Right, exactly.
It wasn't even a fear. It was a reality.
It was a reality. Like, we're told not to be around people, okay? And then you got a distance and for me, I remember that feeling because I had recently come home from a retreat in Costa Rica, and I had like gotten that in under the wire before all of a sudden like planes were grounded and you weren't going into other countries. You weren't even going to other states or even other towns. And that thought came into my head of, I'm really glad I did all the travel I did in my life, because I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do that again. And it was such a sad feeling, like, oh, that's horrible. But I'm glad I got it all in when I did. But that feeling of, what if I can't do that anymore? It was just a horrible thought, because travel to me, that's creativity to me. That's seeing the world. That's connecting with other cultures, other people. And it's so important that we talk about this for people to really tune in. What is connection to you? And are you doing it enough? And it's not just like texting with people, although that's a beautiful way to connect, but how else are you doing it? Are you scheduling dinners? Are you going to retreats? Are you getting on a plane and going to see somebody? Like, what if, Jen, you got on that plane and went to that retreat? You didn't know anyone. You didn't even know it was going to be a yoga retreat, but I'm going to Costa Rica. I need a time out so that I can refuel and come back and deal with all this chaos from a place of fullness instead of a place of depletion. That was you willing to go out and connect. And that move that you made led you to what you're doing now, which was, hey, that retreat was amazing. And I couldn't really go there as much as I would want to with these people, because we were just in a completely different part of our lives. Like, they had no idea what it would be like to be me. And wouldn't it be amazing if I could get these incredible women in a room who also have gone through this and give them this amazing retreat experience? You couldn't have had that idea had you not made that move, gotten on that plane, had that experience. That's the power of making decisions. And that's so important that we talk about. I know a lot of our listeners are women, and I told y'all I'm a pattern spotter. And so across the board, I'll see patterns where so many women will say they want something. They say this is an issue, or they blah, blah, blah. But the pattern is they don't do anything about it. They don't make the decision. They just sit in indecision because they're so afraid of making a move, or because they so afraid of maybe making the wrong move, or maybe are they worth making this move? And y'all, you have got to make decisions. You have got to make decisions. And Jen, you had to deal with that, right? When you were filling this retreat, because there's people who want to and they don't want to make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think the other thing too is just, I am an extrovert. And I, had this assumption that so is everyone else. Clearly that's not true. And so, when you talk, Jenny, about like going to retreats and getting on a plane, like, I understand that that's really scary to a lot of people. And so I want to also bring home the fact, to the people listening, that a connection, and you said this, can be a coffee. It can be a walk with a friend. It can be joining a community on Facebook. It doesn't have to be this huge daunting thing. I again, in my recovery, we talk about, you don't have to have a lot of people. It's just one-to-one, that one-to-one connection. And that can be the entry point. And then once you do that and you're like, that was pretty cool. Then it's like, oh, well, maybe I want to be with more people. Right. And then it's maybe I want to be, and all of a sudden your world just opens up.
Yeah.
And, again, I get like retreats are not for everyone. I get that group settings are not for everyone, but connection is.
There you go. Connection is. We, as humans, we need this. We need this. And as you mentioned, that incredible quote about, if you're in the throes of extreme loneliness, that's equatable to 15 freaking cigarettes. So it erodes on you, and it takes away your feelings of that you deserve to have here. Like, you and I both know, Jen, this life is short. None of us know how long we have here. None. Nobody can say that with certainty. And why not live the best life possible? Why not love fully while you're here? Not only giving it, but receiving it. And that's what connection allows you to do. I always say to clients, you have yet to meet a person who is going to change your life. Like there's still people you haven't met that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, where did this person come from? That just gives me so much joy and excitement. Like, yeah, you haven't made all the friends that you're going to make. You haven't tasted all the incredible tastes that you're going to taste.
Yeah.
But you have to stay open. You got to stay. And with connection too, Jen, what is your thought too on vulnerability and like, how does that play into the work that you do and the rooms that you help curate?
It's a really great question because, again, as an extrovert, my first session in my support group, I thought we were going to sit in a circle and everyone was going to share their story. And I shared mine. And I said, who wants to go next? And everyone just stared at me. And so I understood very quickly that it takes, there is a level of vulnerability to share a story as traumatic as losing somebody. And, I want to make a quick point that my hope for It's Lifey right now, I am focused on widows and widowhood because it is something that's very close to me and close to my life right now. But I do hope to expand it to other life transitions. I have been through divorce. I have blended family, I have other, and I hope to, I'll pull in experts when needed, but I really want to draw from my own experiences. I think that makes it really authentic. But, going back to that authenticity or vulnerability piece is, it took some time and I needed to respect people's willingness to share their stories.
Yeah.
I can tell you by week 6, we all knew everything you could possibly want to know about each other. I mean, things that you didn't want to know, you knew.
Yep.
And by the dinner, I mean, everything was.
Gloves are off. Yeah.
I very much recognize that it takes a level of vulnerability to share parts of your life, especially parts of your life that are painful. Yeah. And I commend you, Jenny, and I watched your journey and how you talk about your sister's death and how it's impacted you and, how you talk about your sobriety and, things that are, most people aren't always comfortable with sharing. But I can also, just as much as and listen, I'm not, again, I have no license in therapy. I'm not a scientist, but in my gut, just as confident as I am about connection being important, I also believe in the power of sharing.
Yes.
And there's a phrase, a problem shared is a problem cut in half. And real, it can be a little hokey. I've said that to a couple people and they roll their eyes at me.
What else?
But the but is, it actually happens.
Yes.
When you share, and again, it doesn't have to be with the world. Like I'm sitting here right now and talking to whoever wants to listen to me. Like, yes. I understand that, everyone's going to be like that not everyone's going to feel. But once you start to share, and it doesn't have to be your life story. It doesn't have to be your deepest, darkest secrets. Like save those for your therapist. Right. But it's your hopes, your dreams, your, this weekend, I really want to go see Dave Matthews in concert. It can be like the simplest things, but once you start to break down those barriers, it becomes easier. Yeah. It becomes easier and you become lighter.
Yes. Yeah. You get that lightness that occurs. And then you realize there's a connection for you. Like, what? Me too.
Exactly.
We were in the pool this week. It was now it's chilly where, Massachusetts, the weather's so random. Like what? It was burning hot the last few days. So I was able to go to the pool earlier this week a few times and just in that water and connecting with one of the moms there. Our daughters are around the same age. It was nice because go make a friend and realizing, oh my God, literally our birthdays, we had all these birthdays in common, side by side birthdays. What? Their birthdays are ours too. And across the board between family members, this is interesting. And again, patterns, noticing, okay, there's something here, but you feel that connection. You feel like there is this joy that occurs. Otherwise, it's just a series of random people who are walking by. You have to be willing to. And then this other thing that happens, you'll appreciate this on this connection. I had met I've seen her years and years at the pool. We only see each other at the pool. There's people you just see in Jordan, and then I won't see you again until next summer.
Right.
And so she's amazing. She's in the entertainment world, like acting, theater. And she was part of the committee that really saved our local movie theater. It was at the risk of closing, and none of us wanted that to happen, because that's such an important part of a community, having a working movie theater. And they show a lot of independent films, and I'm very into all that. And so months ago, I had texted her, it's probably in the winter, I'm not going to see her at the pool, saying, if I ever have an opportunity to help you with some projects of what she's doing to bring film to young people, I really have a desire. Never heard back. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I see her at the pool. She goes, I really want to talk to you about, and I go, I sent you a message. She goes, I never got your message. Well, Jen, we're meeting later today about this. She started a film festival, international film festival for kids 25 and under. So young people. Yeah. And so connection, you talk about connection, and you follow the energy. I'm a big believer in following the energy. We can't necessarily connect with the entire world, because there's a lot of people, right? But we can follow these connections. We can find those people who we feel like there's something there. There's something I want to uncover and discover together. And like when I talk to that person, I feel good. There's something about their energy that brings something good out of me, or even people who trigger you. Ooh, there's something there too that I'm curious about. Like, what is that? And so, Jen, I just want to celebrate you with what you have built. I mean, to take a horrible, traumatic, kind of worst thing you could ever imagine and do something beautiful with it. It's that pain into purpose. You got out of sitting in your own like mud and said, I'm going to go connect with others. I'm going to cut that problem in half, or in thirds and fourths and eighths.
Right.
Because when you get a group together as well, it's like that's what happens, because the group really serves the collective. Like you and I both, like you're really now experiencing the power of group work. And that to me is just magic. When a group is well curated and you are doing an excellent job of like holding that space and, just carving out, here's the kind of the rules of engagement. Here's how we do. And that also helps with creating safety in the room, is that people feel like what I'm saying here is like, yes, we're going to spill, but it's confidential. Like it stays in the room. Like there's ways to create that space where you've got such a powerful room. And then that word travels and other people are like, oh my God, you have to be at Jen's next retreat. You have to go to her support group. That's how it's going to go for you. And it's lifey, will continue to evolve. You don't need to know how it's going to look yet, because there's no way.
I have no idea. In fact, speaking of, okay, we just came from therapy.
Yeah.
You have a call with this woman later about the International Film Festival or the Film Festival for kids. I actually have a call in an hour with my business consultant, who is hopefully going to teach me how to make money from this, because as much as every time I get on the call with him, he says to me, he goes, is this a business or a passion project? And every time I go, I don't know yet.
I love that.
But listen, I know in my heart it's here to stay.
Yes.
And I know you teach a lot around entrepreneurship and monetizing your passions and all of that. And that's been really helpful to me. And, I don't really know. I am not a business person. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a passion connector, as we've said. Yes. But, I've learned to accept and to be really comfortable with the fact that I don't know where this is going. I don't know if it's going to be a business or a passion project. I'm okay with that. And I am not going to be okay with not knowing. Let's be real here.
Yes.
I to know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right. And that's recovery. There's actually this really cool art studio town over, this cute little village. And I always loved the sign that was hanging outside of the studio. It was actually next to, I know you're big into the recovery world, was where some meetings were held. I always would kind of see the sign. And on one side, it said, it's okay to pause. And on the other side of the sign, it was hand painted by this artist. It said, it's okay not to know. Or
Mm-hmm.
and I needed to see that. I need to see that. And P.S. Big love to that artist. She has passed away. She passed away, and she was pretty young when she died of cancer. And that whole like to not know. And Jen, so many businesses, and if you look at some of the biggest companies around, like they're not making money the first few years. It's like they're figuring out like, what is this business even? You have something that people want. And then from there, it's just figuring out the puzzle pieces of how do we really need to price this? What is our expense structure? And that just takes time. It takes a lot of experiments. And so thank you for keeping it real. Some people are like, oh yeah, it's going to be, like this huge thing straight out of the gate. And okay, that's awesome if that happens. But if it doesn't, that's also okay, because you're really working all the pieces, and you're figuring out too, what is it that you even want to do? Because you have to want to do
be
it.
self-aware around, you know what you know, and you know what you don't know. I mean, I came to you because, there was a lot of things that I didn't know that you've taught me. I have a business consultant because I don't know how to do I don't even know what it's called, a forecasting document, it goes back to that asking for help. Like there's a lot of people in this world who are very kind and generous and want to help. You just
Yes, exactly. And that's, I think, a big lesson, a big message from this conversation today is ask for help, get help. And when help arrives, figure out how to receive that help. Sometimes you will get help that's free. Other times it's help that you're going to pay for. And there's always a way. There's always a way. Just trust that and know that you are worthy of help. You are worthy. Those of you who have ideas, and most people watching this show have ideas. And so you're bringing those ideas into form, and you've got to trust in your idea. And I want to highlight you, Jen, for that. You trusted this idea. You said this retreat's happening. There's no way this retreat is not happening. And I've had to say that line over and over and over again. Like I promote my own things. I have things that I'm bringing into form. My husband be like, how's it going? I'm like, it's happening. It's happening. Even when on paper, and we talked about this recently, right? Like I know it's happening, but on paper it might not look like it's happening so well, but it's happening. Like you're there, the vision is strong. You're not deviating. Like it's happening. And that's what we all have to remember, because the people who are deciding whether or not to come in and work with you in whatever way you do your thing, they feel that. And so if you're wobbly and like, I don't know, am I doing the retreat? You've got to be strong in that. And that's why you're doing your own work, working with your coach, working with your therapist, working your program, going to get your acupuncture, pressure, whatever it is.
I don't even know.
Who cares? But you need it. You need it because it helps keep your body in tune. Like we have a frequency. We emit the frequency. And if we're all out of sorts, which life is freaking rough, like there's a lot of stuff that's going on.
Life is lifey.
Life is lifey. You got to take care of yourself. Okay, Jen. So thank you for coming on. Where can people find you? Where can they get in touch with you? Come to your stuff and just follow you.
My website is probably the best place. It's itslifey.com. So ITSLIFEY.com. You can follow me on Instagram, which is It's Lifey Co. You can find me on Facebook. And, you can sign up on my website to receive emails. Again, new things, figuring out email marketing. Who knows what that is, but I promise you'll hear from me in some way or another. And so please connect. Even if it's not to come to a retreat or a support group, but you have an idea or you want to do a partnership or you just want to talk, or you've gone through a traumatic thing in your life that I've gone through. Like there is nothing that, gives me more joy than going and having a cup of coffee or meeting on a Zoom and just listening to someone else's story and sharing mine. So please, again, I would say, my website, it's being relaunched in a couple of weeks with some new information. So keep coming back. Check me out on Instagram, Facebook, all the places. I'd love to hear from all of you. And thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for coaching me for this process. I appreciate it more than you know.
Amazing. All right, y'all, go find Jen. And if you know someone in your world who is a widow going through these major life transitions, and as his life evolves, what Jen's got coming, make those connections, because connection isn't just what we feel, but it's also making connections. And that's, I think, what women do really well is like, oh my gosh, have you heard about so-and-so? So that is how we're going to make this world better, is we're going to connect with each other. We're going to connect our friend to this person over here. Let's do it. Thanks so much for tuning in. This has been incredible. I'm wishing you all an amazing rest of your day, an amazing summer. Go summer. This season moves fast. Make sure you catch it. Take care, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.